Alrighty, if you are a business owner, a leader, or entrepreneur, this video is just for you because the thing that we are going to talk about today is creating steps for your business. And I'll tell you, when you understand the steps that you're doing on a consistent basis, on a daily basis, your whole business is going to transform. And I give you a prime example. When your business transforms, you can do it more consistently, you can do it more often, and you can show up on a daily basis. Why is this important? When you create steps for your business, you are creating systems for your business. And what I recognize over the half a decade of being in business is that you have to have steps to follow every single day. So that way, the steps that you're following is aligned with your business. I'm your host, Terryl Humphrey, and welcome to the Failures Knowledge Podcast. So if you don't have your pen, if you don't have your notebook, go ahead and get there because today we are talking about the importance of creating steps for your business. So go ahead and get it. I'm going to take a break, take a moment. I ain't going to take a break. I'm still going to be on here. But get ready because this information is going to be so impactful, so transformative, and so life-changing. Because I know it changed my life when I started to understand the importance of creating steps. All right, so make sure you got your pen, make sure you got your notebook. We about to get started. So the reason why this topic came about today is because I literally got to think about it. I'm like, all right, cool. So when I a while ago, maybe when I was in the Marine Corps and start selling my first shirts and start selling haircuts and things of that nature, like I was able to put myself out there and start bringing in revenue. And what I recognized is that I was doing things and I was just winging it. Like I didn't have any steps to follow, but I knew every single day that I had to go out and put myself out there. Subconsciously, I didn't follow the steps, but the steps that I was following helped me get more people to work with, to buy the shirts, to cut hair and things of that nature. And so what I recognized during that time is that, well, if you're going to be in business, you have to have steps to follow. I didn't know the steps that I was following back then. So now that I know more of business and understand business, it's not just about having one sale. It's not just about having two sales. It's about having consistent sales and to the point where you can consistently do this. And so what I'm going to talk about, let me go ahead and share my screen. So first thing first, the steps creates a blueprint. Blueprint. A blueprint for what? A blueprint for you to do business. And when you have a blueprint, when you have steps to follow, you are able to do it consistently. Prime example, when you understand the business that you're doing, you can do it more often. You can go to different markets and market yourself accordingly. When I was cutting hair, I had to learn how to cut different people types of hair. Black people, white people, Asian people, Mexican people, Dominican people, Puerto Rican people. Everybody's hair is different. And I remember cutting my first what was it? I think he was Hispanic, but he didn't look Hispanic. I cut his hair. And when I cut his hair, I got a splinter right in my thumb. I'm like, I didn't even know hair can do that. I didn't even know hair can give you a splinter. I'm thinking when you go pick up a wood and a piece of like wood is hanging off, you can get a splinter from that. I was cutting this man's hair and I got a splinter right in my hand and I couldn't even get it out. The steps that I was following was learning how to cut hair. The steps I was following was learning how to identify the hair that I was cutting. The steps I was following was identifying the equipment that I needed. When you have a blueprint to follow, you're able to do it consistently. I didn't cut that many heads because I wasn't consistent with it, yet I also knew that I didn't have skill for it. I didn't have the know-how, nor did I like put the time towards that. And so what that helped me understand, fast forward to today, is that, well, when you're doing business, you have to have a process that's repeatable. In other words, you have to have steps that you can do on a daily basis. Why? Because when you have a process, you're able to do things the same way for the different people at different times. I remember I went to where did I go? It was what was the restaurant? What was the restaurant? What's going on? I can't remember the restaurant, but I remember asking the manager a specific question. Starbucks. I remember going to Starbucks. And I had asked the manager, I was like, hey, my name is Terryl Humphrey, and I'm in school for business. In addition to that, I have my own business. Like, when you are a manager, what is something that you have to remember, like to do every single day? And she literally pointed to a notebook. And it had steps to follow. So every day, every shift, every time she came in, she would grab this notebook and it's labeled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I didn't look at it, but she the way she explained to me, she was like, well, it's labeled. You have to come in and do the same exact thing every single day so you can be prepared for the day. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting to get that information. I wasn't expecting to get that type of information. And so what I discovered during that process, Starbucks is it's a big company. It's a huge company. And so when she explained it, I'm like, oh man, that's a lot. That's a lot of information. The steps to follow was their blueprint to success. Their blueprint to success came from the steps that they need to follow every single day. In other words, steps to follow are a form of a checklist. And you have things to check off on a daily basis. And when you're doing this, you're seeing the same results. I give you a prime example of how I started doing this for my business. Hold on, let me put it over here. Checklist. Let me give you an example of how I started doing it for my business. So I'm in the media business and I do a lot of podcasts and conversations with a lot of different people. And so what I recognize is that when I reach out to people and ask them to be on a podcast, they say, yes, of course, just shoot me the details, shoot me your calendar and let me know what day works best for you. It got to a point where I'm constantly asking them, hey, are you free from, let's just say today's Tuesday, January 6th. Are you free tomorrow, January 7th from 12 to 4? And a lot of people might be like, yeah, they might be busy around there. Majority might be like, nah, that time don't work for me. Does this time work for me? Work for you instead? Which is absolutely fine. What I recognized during that time is that that's going to be the same objection, the problem, a same holdback that a lot of people have. What's your schedule look like? What does your schedule look like? And I'm like, well, I can just send you something so that way you can just look at the schedule and just book it yourself. I want to remove the friction. There's a thing called friction in business to the point where a lot of people are not doing business with you because there's so many obstacles to overcome. In addition to that, when I started to position my podcast, my media business as a business, as I'm reaching out to people and they say, yes, they want to get on a podcast, or people are reaching out to me, they want to get on a podcast, there are steps to follow. As I'm following the steps, everything is running more smoothly. Why? Because I don't have to say the same thing over and over and over and over again. In fact, I can just ask, hey, do you mind if I just share my calendar link so that way you can schedule a day that works best for you? It taught me that when you are in business, you have to have a blueprint that you follow every single time, because every single time you follow the blueprint will help you create the steps to do it consistently. And so when I start sending people my calendar link, I start to see a change. Like I'm no longer trying to figure out when you are available. In fact, when you are available, you book the day, you book the time and day. That taught me that I'm creating steps to follow. And it's removing the stress, it's moving the overwhelmness. And the reason why that's so important, because I wrote down 3 things right here. You got the blueprint, you got steps to follow, and you got checklists. So whatever the name of it is, it's relatively the same exact thing. In addition to that, when you have a process to follow, when you have steps to do on a consistent basis, when you have a checklist to check off and say, hey, I just did this, hey, I just did that, hey, I just did this, you start to see a better outcome. You start to see that you are operating as a business, not just as a hobby. You see the difference between the business and the hobby is that you're doing the hobby for your passion. You're doing the hobby because it's fun. You're doing your hobby because it bypassed time. Now that I transition into a business owner, I'm like, well, how can I follow steps every single day? How can I do the same exact thing consistently and not be overwhelmed or trying to wing it or trying to be creative and trying to create what is it called, a customized experience for everybody. What if I have steps to follow so that way the experience that everyone is going through, it can literally feel customized, yet it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact steps that I'm following. And so when I started to position that differently, it told me that I'm doing something right. Now, as far as revenue is a different thing because of course, you got to figure out what you're selling, how much you're going to sell it for, who you selling it to. In addition to that, as I started to figure it out, it's like, well, that part is going to come. It's like you got multiple different parts in your business. That part is going to come. The revenue part is going to come, which it needs to come now. However, if I'm constantly doing podcasts and constantly reaching out to different people and following up with them, I need to have steps to follow because I don't want to wing it no more. It's not a hobby anymore. It's more so of how can I make this thing that I've been doing for half a decade into a business. When I started to understand, it's not the fact that I'm doing anything wrong. It's more so that I just don't have the right steps to follow. When I started to see the steps, hold on. Let me go ahead and draw something right quick. Hold on. When I started to see the steps that I was following, I started to develop the system for the business. Hold on. Let me explain a little bit further. Let me draw it a little bit. So, when you have a piece right here, this right here is a piece of the system. And then you have this right here, which is another piece. I'm just going to put another piece. And then you have this right here. I'm going to draw a star. I drew this a little bit. This right here is called another piece. Another piece. And then right underneath that, let's just say this one is a rectangle, okay? This one's a what's it called? A pentagon, hexagon or something. Then you got another piece. So as I'm drawing the different shapes, essentially it's called different shapes. There's different pieces of the puzzle that makes the whole puzzle come together. In business, the steps that you're following are putting the pieces together. So when someone reach out, I give you a prime example. When someone reach out to me, this just happened yesterday. When someone reached out to me, I say, hey, thank you for reaching out. We are on it. I say, thank you for reaching out. Down below is the calendar so that way you can schedule a date that works better for you so we can speak more about your business. Then once they schedule it, they get reminders, they get text messages and so on and so forth. But to set the steps up, you have to understand the steps that you are focusing on. And so when I started to see the pattern, when people want to come on to the Phase Knowledge podcast, they're not just coming on to share their story. They're coming on for the experience. There's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, is that you focus on your customer's experience. Your customer experience has to be top tier. Here's my 2 cents into it. Not only does it have to be top tier, it have to be a process. They have to follow steps that you can do on a consistent basis. What this does is that it positions you as someone that's organized. Anyone can go outside and make a quick buck. Anyone can go outside and actually start selling some things. That's absolutely fine. Like, you can definitely do that. But what the challenge comes from is that, are you doing it efficiently? Are you doing it effectively? Are you doing it because you're following steps? Or you just doing it because you're creative? Or you just doing it because you can wing it? Or you're just doing it because you don't have a process in place? You see, in business, when you create steps to follow, you are creating a system for your business. McDonald's has a system. Burger King has a system. Wendy's has a system. Pizza Hut has a system. Walmart has a system. Shout out to Walmart. I used to work at Walmart. All these companies or organizations has a system. I literally remember working at Walmart, and we had to follow the system of being a cashier. You check out people, you communicate with people, you bag them, you put them in a car, or if they put their own bags in the car, but you rotate it. But here's the thing about that process is that when you do it over and over and over and over again, the steps doesn't follow, yet you become more efficient. Hold on. It's not that the steps are not in place for your business. You just haven't been putting them in place for you to be more effective. You see, when I started to understand, I'm like, hold on, this is different. This is amazing. The steps that I need to follow needs to be consistent. And so when I go to business school and I'm going for business management, I start to see the things that a lot of corporations are doing that talk about it. And so what I recognize, I'm like, okay, how can I apply that to my business? Even though they're a big corporation, how can I apply to my small business right now? It's small right now, but it's not going to always stay small. In order for it to grow from small to big, it has to have steps to follow. And over the last year and a half, I've been putting the systems in place. I get it. Like, you got to go out and communicate with customers, which I have been trying to sell, but I also been discovering the product and problem that I'm actually solving. And so now that everything is coming together, on the last slide, I talked about the different shapes of the business, different pieces of the puzzle. Everything is not going to come together all at once. In fact, it's going to come together when you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. There's a saying that says, hold on, let me change this page real quick. There's a saying that says, don't be afraid of the person. Bruce Lee said this, I couldn't find a video, but he said this because I looked it up and it was quoted by him. He said, don't be afraid of the person that practiced 10,000 kicks. He said, be afraid of the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. And when I started to put it in my perspective, my point of view, my level of understanding, I'm like, what does that even mean? 10,000 kicks calls for different positions, different techniques, skills, etc. There's so many different things that you have to adapt for the 10,000 kicks. Whereas if you focus on one kick 10,000 times, that one kick will become so powerful that one kick will be the secret ingredient. Hold on. Let me go a little bit deeper with it. So the reason why that's so important, let me come back to the screen right quick. The reason why that's so important is because when you practice something for 10,000 times, eventually you're going to get good at it. If you have steps to follow 10,000 times and it's the same steps over and over and over again, eventually you will be effective. Eventually you will be efficient. Eventually you will have a business that you created steps to follow on a consistent basis. The reason why that's important, the reason why that's important is because when you start to understand the steps that you are creating, has to be followed on a daily basis. Why? Because when you are in business, you have to follow the steps every single day. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. It doesn't matter what other corporations are doing. What matters is that you are putting your systems in place. And I often recognize, I'm like, all right, cool. I got to spend a whole day to put these systems together or the steps together, which is beneficial. But it's a lot. Even with AI, it's still a lot because you have to know what to ask, what to put in, what to incorporate, and things of that nature. But at the same time, once it's set, it is set. Once you have the steps to follow for your business, you can follow the steps for your business on a daily basis. It kind of gives you an advantage. The reason why it gives you an advantage, because if you're following the same thing and doing the same thing, you will be really efficient. So I just talked about a few things, but first thing I talked about is that you have to create steps for your business. When you create steps for your business, you can do it over and over and over again. And so the next point I want to hit on is that you have to also, hold on. Oh, dang, did I just change page? Oh, okay, there we go. You have to also, with every step that you create, hold on. This one is an overwhelming one. This one is like, oh man, you have to test these steps. Here's the most important part. I'm gonna put it in parentheses. As a customer, you have to experience your product. Oh, you can't even see that. Hold on. You can't even see that. All right, there we go. You have to experience your product, your service, and your business just like a customer. I remember working at the movie theater, and as I was working at the movie theater, they have a secret shopper come in and secretly shop at the movie theater. They was checking to make sure that we was doing everything that we needed to do. In other words, they was checking to make sure we was following the steps. They would come in, they would purchase their tickets. Once they purchase, let me draw this out. This one I really when I got to reflecting, I'm like, oh wait, that is a form of business. Of course, I was like, I wasn't a manager or anything of that nature, but like being able to witness that in the system, oh man, when I started learning more about business, I was like, wait, ain't that a business? I digress. So anywho, so you got this customer right here. Let's just call him customer. You got this customer right here. You got the booth right here. Let's just say this right here is the ticket booth. Ticket booth. You got the ticket booth. And then once they go in, hold on. This is the enter. They enter right here. Enter. Once they purchase their tickets, then now they go to concession. Hold on. That don't look right. Then they go to concession. This is the customer. That's the customer right there. This right here is the concession. And the customer or worker, I'm gonna put worker. This right here is concession. Okay. And then, hold on, I didn't even see that this wasn't there. Hold on. See. Hold on. Okay. So then you have step one. Step one, they enter. I'm just gonna put one right here. One, they enter the they get out their car and then walk up to the ticket booth. After they walk up to the ticket booth, they go and get food. And let's say food and drinks. Then they proceed to go to the next step. Hold on. Which one was that? That start step number 2. Step 2. Hold on. Step 1. This right here is step 2. Concession. Food and drinks. I'll put 2 right there. All right, food and drinks. Then they go to ticket booth. This right here is the ticket booth. Or the ticket verifier. Or ticket concierge. Like they can help them identify where is that and where they going. They can tell them where they going and what theater it is. Hold on. All right, so this is step number 3. So then they get pointed to the direction with the auditorium. Okay, so this right here is the screen. I'll put screen inside. Screen. And you got seats right here. All right, and then the person comes and sit. So now we have step number 4. And then there's a walker that has to scan. Hold on. That has to walk through. I don't know if they still do the same thing right now, but this is when I was working there a couple years ago. They would have a light. And then they would walk, 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 hello, walk, 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 walk. And then here, we're going to call this exit. We're going to call that exit. And then when they come back, and it's called a round, when you complete your round, you leave the auditorium, but then once it's done, you come back and get ready to clean it. So here's the thing about that. We on 4. This is 5 right here. 5 step 5. Step number 5. All right. So when you go in, and then step number 6. Step 6 is to prepare. Hello. For the next showing. In other words, restock, make sure you got enough popcorn, make sure you got enough food, drinks, and things of that nature. Okay, so that's step number 6. Yeah, step number 6. Step number 7. Step number 7. Hold on. Step number 7 is to clean. This one right here is to clean. So you got 2 people cleaning. They got a broom. There's a broom. Boom. Boom. I'm going to say brooms because they don't look like no broom. Isaiah, what to do, bro? Brooms. All right, cool. So now, call them cleaners. So I just went through 7 steps that the movie theater focus on. They focus on the customer experience. They focus on letting the customer go get something to eat. They helping the customer go get food. They go and direct the customer to their auditorium. Then the worker come in there and check the exit door. Then after that, they go restock for the next showing. And then after that, they come in and clean the theater. Why did I just explain that? Why did I just take the time to draw that out? The reason why I just drew that out is because you have to test the steps and make sure that it runs smoothly. I'm pretty sure before I start working at the movie theater, they did a whole bunch of tests because it just flowed flawlessly. Like when I came in, it was just like, well, I'm getting put into this step or getting put into this system. All I have to do is just do what they tell me to do. What that taught me when I start learning about business, I'm literally like, wait, hold on. Why should I have steps to follow? Because you never know who's going to walk in, and it doesn't matter who's walking in. If someone walked through this door, which is a customer, if a customer walked through this door, they have to experience your business. They have to experience you. And what that taught me is that, oh, wait, I need steps for my business. I needed to run it as smoothly as possible. And as I'm doing it as smoothly as possible, I have to understand, like, wait, hold on. I'm in business. When I was doing and working at the movie theater, I was just what is called an associate. I just was working there. I didn't own it. I was just working there. And so what that taught me is that when you create steps for your business, you will eventually start to do the same thing over and over and over again. That's where the terminology comes from. You like a robot, because robots do the same thing on a consistent basis. But for your business, as you are creating the steps to follow consistently, you start to understand that you are in business to create experience for your customers. When I started to understand that, I was like, I was mind blown. Hello. I was mind blown. When I started to understand that in business, you have to create steps to follow, I'm like, how can I how can I do what I discovered when I was working at the movie theater to do for my own business? How can I create the steps? How can I follow the same process? How can I do it consistently? So what I learned during that time is that, one, you have to understand what you're doing. 2, you have to know what you're doing. 3, you have to understand what you are selling. So over that half a decade, in fact, over the last 2.5 years, I've been fine-tuning what I sell, what we do, and who we help. In addition to that, as I'm figuring it out, now full transparency, I haven't made a ton of money from business yet. However, now that I have the process, now I have the steps, now that I know the problem that I'm solving, eventually it'll happen. But I'm focused on the steps. The steps that I do, that I focus on every single day is going to help me create the results. It's going to help me position myself differently. And when I start to understand, like, wait, hold on, this is how you have a business. So the steps that we follow, I give you a prime example. For the editing, I literally have 9 steps to follow. And I did that last time I did a podcast. I was like, all right, cool. We go do the podcast, go set it up. I have steps to set up the equipment. I have steps to take down the equipment. I have steps to edit the video. I have steps to communicate with the customer afterwards. So there's so many steps that goes on between everything. And for me to understand every step that I'm doing, I have to have a blueprint to follow. In the beginning of this live, in the beginning of this podcast, I talked about 3 different things, or 3 different names that you can call your steps. And when you create the steps for your business, you either have a blueprint, you either have steps to follow, or it's called a checklist. When I start to put these in place, I became less overwhelmed. Because it's not just about a podcast, it's not just about an in-person conversation, it's not just about an online conversation, it's not just about an online presence. What it consists of is me following the steps on a consistent basis. The only difference for me working at the movie theater and me working for my own business is that I have to be the one to put the systems in place, so that way when I start bringing more people in, they can follow the steps that's already created. When you test your steps, you are experiencing your product and your business as a customer. When you test it and experience it as a customer, you start to see things that can be tweaked. You start to see things that can be improved. The reason why I have steps for different things that I'm doing, because I start to see, I'm like, wait, that doesn't make me look efficient. That doesn't make me look organized. In fact, it makes me look the opposite. Like I'm unorganized and I don't know what I'm doing. In reality, when I started to position myself differently, business became less overwhelming. The reason why it became less overwhelming, because I'm not trying to do something new. The quote that I talked about with Bruce Lee, don't be afraid of somebody that practiced 10,000 kicks. Be afraid of the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. Hello, I messed that quote up. Hold on, I gotta redo it. Don't be afraid of the person that practiced 10,000 kicks. Be afraid of the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. Why? Because if I can follow the steps consistently, get results from the steps that I'm following, and be able to teach it, be able to explain it, be able to show it, I will have a successful media business. But here's the thing. I don't know everything. I'm not going to act like I know everything. Where I got that from is being around a lot of mentors. I did a podcast the other day about, what was it? I forgot the title, but one of the points that I talked about was finding mentors. I have a lot of mentors that I speak with. To this day, I still keep them updated. Well, I keep some of them updated depending on the day and time. No. Like whenever I think about it, I just let them know. I shoot them a message. Reason why is because they give me a different perspective to help me understand my path, to help me understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and the reason behind it. It gives me confidence to know I'm doing the right thing. The steps to follow removes the stress. Once the stress is removed, I can do it consistently. Hold on. When you test the steps, you are now the customer, because you have to experience your product as the customer. Hold on. My wife, she's a phenomenal cook, and she loves to cook. And I don't love to cook as much as her, but I cook. And one day we was watching a chef show, a cooking show. And as we was watching it, the shelves was like that you have to taste your food. And it kept emphasizing, have you tasted your food? Have you tasted the food that you just cooked? And one of the contestants was like, no, I didn't test it. I'm allergic to shellfish. And they looking at each other, well, how do you know you cooked it right? And my wife is there as we are watching the cooking show. She proceeds to say, that's why I always test or test my food. Like I always try my food. And I look at her, I'm like, what do you mean you always try your food? Wait, you always try your food? She was like, yeah. I said, why? She said, because if it's not good to you, it's not going to be good to anybody else. And I struggle with that because I'm like, this whole time, I'm thinking you never needed to test your food out or to taste your food. In reality, it's the complete opposite. You have to taste everything that you are doing. In other words, you have to experience your business as the customer. So that way you see the little small details that can be improved. You see the small improvements that a lot of people are not talking about. A lot of customers won't emphasize or speak up about, which is absolutely okay. But what happens is that when you have steps to follow and you test the steps that you're following, then you can do minor improvements. Hold on. When you improve minorly, you're improving your business overall. Business has to have steps to follow. And when you have steps to follow, you can do it consistently. I remember when I got into real estate and I was doing it by myself, I was inconsistent with it because one, I didn't really understand everything that I needed to do. I didn't know how to code. I knew how to code, but I didn't know how to have a communication about their home or what problem they was going through and how their timeline behind everything. Like I didn't know that. But when I started working with my mentors, they taught me how to communicate with homeowners. Excuse me. They taught me how to ask the right questions. They taught me how to position the conversation to gain more information from them. It was hard for me. It was definitely hard for me because it was something that I wasn't familiar with. Selling, like what is selling? Real estate. Like I'm familiar with real estate at this time because I was learning it. But like commission, like what is commission? You know, like all these different things that involves a business. And so as I'm doing and talking to homeowners, it was rough. It was really rough. Yet they emphasize the importance of understanding the problem that your homeowners have. If they don't want to sell their place, they're not, whatever you say, it doesn't matter because you could be wasting your time because you're not hearing the problem. You can have tire landlord, you can have vacancy, what is called? They owned the home for a long time. You can have moved out the state. Like there's different problems that come with real estate. I don't remember all of them because I wasn't that good. Nonetheless, it's really just understanding like when you test the steps that you have created, you have to be okay with denial. You have to be okay with failure and you have to be okay with starting over. Well, as I was working with them, I was like, man, I ain't bringing as much value as I would like to. One, because I wasn't doing the work behind the scenes. I wasn't necessarily taking work home. I'm like, hey, man, it's time to go. It's time to go. Nonetheless, it caught up to me later on. Like I started to understand more everything that they was trying to teach me and emphasize. What this encouraged me to do is to continue to learn about the steps that I need to follow. So the last one that we just went over was to test the steps. First, hold on. Well, we just went over two different things, 2 different points about creating steps for your business. First point that we went out is that you have to create steps. It can be called a blueprint, steps to follow, checklists, and so on and so forth, but you have to follow it consistently. The second point that we went over was to test the steps. Test these steps. That's a tongue twister. And the last thing that we are going to speak about is we're going to talk about collecting. Hold on. Of course, my pen go dead. Oh, there we go. Last thing we're going to talk about is this 3 right here. Hold on. 3 is getting. Hold on. Let me just bring this down just a little bit. Is getting feedback. Okay. Why is that important? Feedback is what feeds the business. Yes, revenue is what funds the business, but feedback is what feeds the business. Why? Because if you get feedback on what's working, you can do more of what's working. If you get feedback on what's not working, then you can improve what needs to be fixed and updated. When I started to collect feedback, I started to see a shift in my business. Because I can literally change things on the spot instead of me guessing what to change. And I had went to go, what was it called? I went to some restaurant and I was there to pick it up, and we were just waiting. I was just waiting. And then as I'm waiting, I sat down, and as soon as I sat down, I looked. I didn't even turn my whole body. I just looked down. And when I looked down, it had a sheet asking for Google reviews. And then I saw that, and I was like, that's pretty creative. And then I was like, hey, you mind if I speak to a manager? They would say, yeah, no problem. It was busy. And so I'm there just waiting, one, because my food hasn't came out. And then two, I'm just waiting. I'm very patient. And so time goes on. And the manager comes and talks to me. He was like, yeah, man, my name is so-and-so. How can I help you? I said, hey, thank you for making the time to communicate with me. My name is Terryl Humphrey. I just random super question. I sat down right here and I noticed the Google form, the Google Sheets right here. Like, y'all are collecting real feedback in real time. He was like, yeah. I was like, why? Because if you go to a lot of organizations, a lot of people are not collecting feedback while the customer is there. Like, it's hard to get feedback when people leave and go about their day. Whereas if they already there, you can get feedback. And he explained to me, he was like, well, it works in our favor because if we get feedback while they're here, we can update or we can improve what we need to. Well, we can make changes in addition to that and make adjustments. As he was explaining, I'm thinking about how can I implement this for my business. Now I'm like, wait, I'm already implementing that. I'm already getting feedback. I'm already getting what needs to be improved, what doesn't need to be improved. I remember I gave a presentation in Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out to the Empower Conference and Eddie Mack, you all. When I gave a speech when it was around building culture through podcasting. And I was like, man, I don't know if that title even makes sense. But I went with it. I talked and I gave a presentation. After the presentation, I'm like, all right, cool. I need some feedback. So I went to go get feedback. And when I asked, okay, what was your biggest takeaway from my presentation? A lot of people told me their biggest takeaway. Then I was like, all right, cool. What is one thing that I can improve for my next presentation? Majority of people was like, you're very soft-spoken, which I am. Okay, I don't do all that yelling. I talk at a normal tone. But see, here's the problem when I'm in the room talking at a normal tone. A lot of people was not going to hear me. So that means that a lot of people is missing the message. Why am I sharing that? Because when I got that feedback, I immediately start improving the way I communicate or the way I present, the way I talk. If you go back and listen to some of my episodes on The Phase Knowledge Podcast, you will hear the difference. You will hear the difference. Not only are you hearing the difference, you're hearing the improvement. Feedback helps you improve. When you get feedback, you can improve at a faster pace than anyone else. Why? Because when you improve, hold on, let me come back to the screen, getting feedback. So improvement equals willingness to grow. Feedback ain't bad. I invite feedback. In fact, if you're listening to that, I would love your feedback on your biggest takeaway so far on why creating steps for your business is so important. Let me know the feedback. Let me know the good, and let me know one thing that I can potentially improve on. Why am I doing that? I want to be a great host and deliver value and information that will help you go from point A to point B. What is point A and point B, Terrell? Point A is not understanding the importance of exposure. Point B is understanding the importance of exposure and going to get more exposure for your business. The reason why we talk about exposure and turning setbacks into success is because if you're not sharing your challenges, your failures, your growth, how can you have a business that relate to other people? I started to understand it's bigger than just a podcast. I'm like, all right, cool. How can I make it bigger than a podcast? I have to expand my language. Yes, it's around podcasting, but business can translate to any industry. Any industry needs some type of exposure. Any industry has turned their setbacks into success. Any industry has to create steps for their business. As you create steps for your business, you remove the stress, you remove the overwhelmness, you remove everything that you're thinking about because you're removing that energy. One thing. Hold on. When you start to remove that energy, you start to grow. As you are growing, you are becoming. As you are becoming, you are improving because you are getting feedback to help you grow. Feedback is not bad. There's a terminology called constructive criticism. And my wife sometimes be like, you can't take constructive criticism. I'm like, yes, I can. I can take constructive criticism. I asked for it. So how can I not take it? Constructive criticism. That's not wrong. Constructive criticism. And so constructive criticism helps you improve. When I played football, I got constructively criticized so much, so I'm like, man, I ain't doing nothing right. I ain't doing that. What am I doing right? It's not the fact I was doing anything wrong. It's just that my skill was not developing. I just had to take time. I needed a lot of feedback. I need a lot of improvement. But I tell you this, when you start to create steps for your business, you start to see the change that you are transforming into. You're no longer just doing your business as a hobby. I started to really focus on my business within the last year. And all these different challenges I'm doing is really putting myself in position to have a business around media and to help leaders gain more exposure, share a story, and attract the right customers. Reason being is because now I understand it's not just about a hobby. Okay, the podcast is good, but it's not just about a hobby. It's not just about a passion anymore. How can I turn that passion into a business? Well, I have to start creating steps. I have to start reaching out to different customers. I have to go through the customer experience. I have to experience what the customers is going through and really improve. I can only improve when I start to really focus on the business side of it. I was watching an interview with Mr. Beast. And the way he's talking, I thought a while ago that content creation is like the business, or I know it's called business, but I'm thinking content creation is it. Like all you gotta do is press record and that's it. No, wait. All you have to do is press record. Do you have a huge following? Do you have all these different sponsors and people come on? Like, no, it takes more than that. Pressing recording is the first step. Learning about business is the second step. Why? Because when you record, as you're recording, you're getting comfortable on camera. But the camera itself is not going to bring in revenue. What's going to bring in revenue is what I'm learning, is what I've learned over the last half a decade, is that you have to have something to sell. Okay, you have to have something to sell. You have to go and sell it, and you have to do it consistently. When you have those three things, you have to have something to sell. So you have to go sell it. You have to have something to sell, go sell it, and be consistent with it. Then you're not going to see results. I started to understand within the last year that, it's not just about one particular area. It's like everything that falls underneath having a business. But then go to school for business management, but then going to having different mentors for business and different, it's called cohorts or business groups, different communities I'm part of. Oh, this is a business. Oh, wait, social media It's a business. How is it a business? It's a business because you can reach more people to sell your product and your service. What does that even mean? The more people you reach, the more you can sell your product. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. The steps that you are following is helping you build the business that you desire. And when I discovered that a while ago, I was like, I'm not just creating content no more. The content is the important factor of it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very important. But it's not the only thing I should be focused on. I should focus on putting things in place, doing it consistently, and in addition to that, following the steps that's already in place. What will happen from that is that I'm consistently reaching out to people, consistently doing podcasts, and consistently making revenue for my business. But it took me a long time to get to this point. So that's why I want to come on and talk about why creating steps to follow for your business is the secret ingredient for you to actually establish your business. There's another book that I wanted to mention that I really forgot to mention earlier. The E-Myth Mastery. This book changed my life, and it gave me a different perspective of what business actually is. It talks about 3 different things. One being a technician, having the skill to do your business. And then the second one is being the manager, which is managing the skill that you already have. And then the other one is entrepreneur. It's the entrepreneur manage the manager who manages the skill. And I if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a leader, I definitely recommend that book because that book will give you a different perspective of how to do business. You have to create the steps that you're following. You have to create the steps for your business so you can follow it consistently. And as you follow it consistently, you will start to see results. Last thing I want to talk about, because I just went over the 3 points, but before I close, I really want to talk about this because I discovered this today. So as I was looking at the data, looking at my back end of everything, just to see how many people came in, how many people are watching, listening, so on and so forth, I noticed that I'm in places that I've never been before. The Phase Knowledge Podcast is in countries that I never visited before. And I got to thinking, I was like, man, how? How is that even possible? And I started to reflect. I started to think. I was like, wait. What I've been trying to figure out is the thing to sell is that first I had to gain more of the exposure that I was talking about. I had to gain more of the awareness. So I had to be a customer on my own product. So now that I see that I'm expanding among different countries, it's like, oh, that's what that means. Now when I'm positioning and I go out to sell it, I'm not just selling locally. Like, this is a global media platform now. And when I started to see that, I said, I figured it out. Now I have the information, the confidence, the steps to follow to create a business around this. And I'm going to create a business around this. In fact, I'm creating a business around this. And it's giving me so much confidence because now I understand what I'm doing. Now I understand how to go about doing it. Now I understand the steps to follow to do it more consistently. Hold on. So I wanted to share that because that was a big realization for me, and it gave me like, oh wait, that's it. It gave me like a light bulb came off. A light bulb came off. He was like, oh, that's what you was looking for this whole time. You was looking for that. And it's different. It's difficult to put something out there if you're not seeing the results for yourself. And when you start seeing the results, you start to do it more often. That's what I'm about to start doing, is doing more often. Reaching out to more people, following more people, and just communicating with more people. Why? Because if I want to be and have a media business, I have to do it consistently by following the steps that's already in place. And so in closing, this has been a great video, great live, great stream, great podcast. Appreciate y'all for coming on. I'm not logging off just yet. So to recap, when you are in business, you have to create steps to follow for your business. It doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you have steps to follow consistently, you will have a business that will be able to impact a lot of people. As you are impacting a lot of people, that only comes from the steps that you have put in place earlier. The next thing that we talked about was that test the steps. You have to test your steps out. Everything that you put in place, test it out. And as you are testing it out, you are improving, you are growing, you are developing. More importantly, you are becoming better. When you become better as a business owner, the steps that you put in place will help you do it more often. And the more often you do something, the more effective of a business that you will have. And the last thing that we talked about was that you have to get feedback. You have to receive feedback. You have to. As you are receiving feedback, you are growing, you are learning, you are becoming someone different, but you have to be okay with learning more about the growth that you are establishing. So that way, the steps that you're creating will help you discover everything that you do consistently. So this has been great. Let me know your biggest takeaway on the creating steps for your business. Let me know in the comments. Love to read and engage with it. Lastly, never be afraid to fail, because you are only one failure away from your life changing. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you hit that follow button, hit that subscribe, and also leave your biggest takeaway in the comments so I can read it as well. So I appreciate y'all. Then I'll see y'all for the next one.